Well, hey, Ashley, I wanted to take about maybe 15 minutes of your time in this video to talk a little bit about your job description for the administrative assistant. Really good overall, aside from being late. I struggled to really find some big areas where you could improve it, but I wanted to take some time to talk through it anyway. It'll help you out an awful lot if, before we get really started good, that you put this video on pause and you print the PDF file. It is a copy of your original document with all of my notes on there. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about if you print that out. But also notice the doc file that I have attached that I've called Administrative Assistant. I'd encourage you to go into your original document in your files and delete that document that you sent me, because this one that I've attached here replaces that. I've made some changes to it. I've done some formatting things. I've changed a few wording situations here and there. I've added some phrasing on some various places. So what you sent me is version 1. What I've attached here is version 2. Sometime during the day on Thursday, hopefully you'll create version 3 to send back to me by email, and then I might create a version 4 with some minor tweaks. But let's don't go back to version 1. Let's go back to version 2 when we move forward. All right, with that said, assuming that you've got your PDF file printed, let's talk through this thing real quick. The job summary obviously is a summary of the job. You ought to be able to think, what does an administrative assistant do? Generally speaking, administrative assistant helps out some sort of manager or administrator, does a lot of the clerical work, acts on their behalf to make some decisions that are minor in terms of scheduling and mail and things like that. Does a lot of those kinds of clerical types of duties. So you want your job summary to really reflect the clerical nature of this job. You've done that pretty well in what you've got. You might want to look at it just to see if there's anything that you might want to tweak on it, but it's pretty good the way it is, with the idea that this person generally does clerical kinds of things that support the activities of a manager or an administrator. Then what are the specific functions that he or she will do to accomplish those overall objectives or goals? Use computers, sure. One of the things you'll notice that I've done on the file I sent you is to change using and observing to use and observe, provide, develop, so that there's consistency in the wording on this. But there are some things that came to mind that an administrative assistant might do that you haven't addressed here. You'll notice the scribbling there is I put in schedule. One of the big things will be to keep up with the schedule of the administrator or the manager that you're assisting. In a lot of cases, managers say, you do all of it. If somebody wants a meeting, you look on my calendar, you schedule it, and I'll just check periodically to see what's on my schedule, and I'll do whatever you tell me to do and go wherever you tell me I need to go. You might also have something in there about looking through mail and answering phone calls and making decisions on what's a priority and what's not, and things like that. That would add a lot of value to the essential functions. In a lot of cases, job descriptions stop here, and they don't talk about the context. But I wanted you as an HR professional to think about the environment in which this employee is going to be doing those things. And the job context that we have on this particular form answers some of the main questions that this person will have. Supervision received answers the question, who do I report to? And it may seem obvious, but it might really not be. I can look on an organizational chart and see a box that says administrative assistant. I want to be able to see the line that goes out of the top of my box to another box. That's who I report to. That's who has authority over me. You have done a pretty good job of saying that this works for the office manager. And that's the supervising authority and the role that that person will play to train, answer questions, delegate tasks. The office manager will be physically in close proximity on a daily basis. That's pretty good. I'd like to get a little more specific. What I'm telling a lot of folks in these videos is to say we'll be working directly under the office manager, who will be located 2 offices down from where you are, something to that effect. So I know, yeah, 20 feet away is the person that I go to for tasks and updates and things like that. You might also say that when this person's not in the office, he or she is still accessible through email, video, whatever, to give the impression that this person's never out of touch, generally speaking. So that I might add to the supervision received. But as administrative assistant, especially a new one with this company, I know that I'm going to have a lot of questions. And I'm not going to want to go to that office manager every single time I have a question. I'm going to get tired of going to that person. I'm going to feel embarrassed or dumb going 20 times a day to ask a question. And the office manager is going to get tired of seeing me come. So there've got to be other resources available that I can go to get my questions answered. That's what the point of the available guidelines is. The example that I gave you for the HR assistant had language like you used, but they did it wrong. And I never corrected it when I gave it to you. I talked about it in that video. But what I would say that you do here is to brainstorm what resources are available to an administrative assistant to answer questions that he or she may have in the absence of going to a human being or to the supervisor. It may be that there are employee handbooks, there are personnel manuals, there are policies and procedures manuals, there are intranet uh, sites that our company has created. There are mentors that have been assigned to me, or there are senior administrative assistants that know how to do these things. But generally speaking, show me in this part of it where I have resources that give me a variety of options to find answers to my questions. Do that somehow in a matter of a few sentences. Under accountability consequences of error, again, the main idea of the administrative assistant is to be the right arm of the office manager. And that means that I'm going to have to keep accurate schedules. I'm going to have to be the doorkeeper to that person's office and to keep out people that don't need to be there and to usher in and schedule people that do. What are the things that we're going to really hold this person accountable for? Effective use of the manager's time and calendar. Good decision making in terms of what the priorities are for that person. So these are the things that we're going to hold you accountable for. And what happens if you do it wrong? If you do a poor job of keeping the office manager up to date on what's on the calendar, the office manager is going to be working on the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's going to be in the wrong place. It's going to be talking to the wrong people. We're going to waste a lot of time. That has a bottom line impact to our organization. So think about the consequences of the things that could go wrong and what those things are. You've talked about monetary loss, interruption service, internal, external service. Those are all organizational consequences, but there are personal consequences too. If you can't do this job right and get these accountabilities well done, there are going to be reprimands of some sort for you, up to and including termination. All that, I think, kind of needs to be here because it paints a realistic picture that we're going to work with you to help you learn this, but there's certain expectations that we have, and if you can't meet those, we're going to have problems. Under personal context, you'll see that I've noted that there are both internal and external contexts. Who does this person come in contact with? You've mentioned the office manager, daily basis. Why? Senior managers. Why? But you don't indicate when. You might say occasionally or a couple of times a day or several times a week or things like that. Co-workers. But there are a lot of other people that this person is going to come in contact with. There's a lot of people outside our organization. Customers are going to be calling for information. Vendors are going to be calling for information. Salespeople trying to set up appointments. Government people, perhaps. Think about all of the different kinds of people that our office administrative assistant might come in contact with. Try to define how frequently that's going to happen because we want to paint a picture that you're not here alone all day. You're going to interact with people. These are the kinds of people you interact with and how frequently you're going to be doing that. All right. Under supervision exercised, obviously, will you be supervising anybody as an administrative assistant, especially a new one? The answer is no. Realistically, you will not be supervising directly other people, at least in terms of approving time cards and giving time off and things like that. So you probably want to say, not immediately, not directly, but indirectly, informally, yeah, you'll be looked at as a leader among other administrative assistants. You will be supervising or mentoring new employees, things like that. Physical demands, what are the things that are going to be done that could cause injury to me, that could cause me to go home tired or worn out, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. You talked about phone conversations, stress tolerance. It's a sedentary position, but there are times when this person is going to have to lift stuff. Generally speaking, it's going to be 10 pounds or less. You might want to mention that. You're going to eventually have to walk across the warehouse or things like that. So there'll be some walking involved. Try to define what that looks like. You might have to talk with angry people, which means that there could be a stress component. You've talked about stress, but how does that occur? Under work hazards, certainly OSHA is something that every organization has to deal with. You can say that here. You can say that we try to keep a safe environment and people are cared for, but what kinds of things could cause hazard? What kind of things could cause stress? What kind of things could cause ulcers? Um, there's probably a limited list here. If we were talking about warehouse, there's oil spillages and chemical spillages, and there's things falling off of shelves and things like that, which don't apply here. But those are things I want you to think about. What are the hazards of this job? And then personal demands. What you got isn't really on track with what this is looking for. The question that you're answering here is what kinds of things could take me away or eat into my personal life? Do I have to work overtime? That eats into my personal life. Do I have to work weekends or holidays? That eats into my personal time. Um, do I have to travel any? Is it just during the day? Is it overnight? Do I have to use my own car? All of those kinds of things are personal demands. And I want you to think about that. In the realistic administrative assistant, how often will they go to meetings? How often will they leave the company? How often will they have to work overtime to help get reports done or weekends or whatever? Put that into your personal demands. Knowledge, skills, abilities are the characteristics. When you look at the essential functions, you've done a pretty good job here. In order to do those things, what knowledge do you need to have? You need to have the knowledge of computer systems and Word and scheduling, Outlook, that kind of stuff. You need to have the skills to answer phones, to make decisions. You need to have the ability to deal with angry people or to, time management or whatever. A lot of that shows up in what you've got. So you may not do much here other than just think about it one more time with fresh eyes from the perspective of the administrative assistant. You've looked at it from the perspective of the HR person, but look at it from the other side. Minimum qualifications, at least a high school diploma. Somewhere in there you want to put preferred or required, okay? You've got requirement, yeah, I'm sorry. High school diploma or GED equivalent, because not everybody's got a high school diploma. If I've got a GED, I would still qualify for this. So high school diploma or GED equivalent is required. Associate's degree or equivalent credit hours in the business administration is preferred. Keep in mind again that you're in this particular setting, not in real life. In real life, you might require an associate's degree. In this particular setting, you're looking at business communication students at GSW, and they don't have an associate's degree for the most part, but they have the equivalent of that because they've got 60 or 70 or 90 credit hours. So work that in somehow to the language here. Minimum of 2 years previous work-related skill, knowledge, or experience is very, very broad. What do you mean by work-related? You want to say something about clerical types of activities, managing the schedules of managers and so forth, knowledge, experience. And you do want to say, you said minimum, but is that required or is it preferred? Minimum of 2 years preferred or minimum of 2 years required? Spell that out in detail. That gets you through the bulk of it. I think you've done a real good job with this, and little minor tweaks would make it perfect. Now that you've looked at the video, you've heard me talking about it, I've given you some ideas, done some brainstorming, so forth. Sit down with that job description and update it a little bit, and when you've got it ready, email it back to me. When I've gotten all 14 of these things, unfortunately, you're number 11 in the sequence. I've already recorded 10 of these videos, still got 3 more to do tonight at 10:30 in the evening, but I've already gotten, I think, 3 of them back with corrections. So it's not, for most people, big things they need to correct. You gave me version 1 to start. I sent you back version 2. You're getting ready to work on version 3. You will probably not do a version 4. I might do some tweaks. But at that point, we'll load it out to the website on Friday probably, and you may start having some people ask for appointments for interviews as early as Friday afternoon or Saturday. Certainly by Monday, I would think of next week. So work on that, get it back to me. If you have questions, email me or call me. You're doing a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing the final version of this thing. I've tried to give you some guidance, but giving you a lot of flexibility to develop this the way that you want to. You've got some great ideas in here. Keep it up.